Hello, good afternoon. This is the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 in Accra, Love 99.5 in Kumasi, affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Sun City Radio Keta, Volta Premier Ho, ATL FM, Cape Coast, Radio Max Takrade, and Rage 104.9 FM Tamale. We're live on Twitter Spaces, Facebook live stream, and my Joy Online interactive app. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel info quantity. Petrosol, always a delightful experience. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Coming up this afternoon, 23 dead in 11 days at Boko as the West African Network for Peace Building is warning of intense cross-border violence by extremists between Burkina Faso and Ghana's northern borders if the Boko conflict is not brought under control.
Boko is becoming, if you want to describe it, militarized in a way. So there are targeted attacks, on the fields, on the farms, on the roads, and around the houses.
We have more in the situation tracking report released by the network as it blames the sustained violence on misunderstanding, mistrust, and non-cooperation among the security, the factions, and communities in Boko. Also, government steps up its course to secure an IMF support program with focus now on restructuring $29 billion worth of external debt after what it says is a successful domestic restructuring.
Of the success of the domestic debt exchange program would also build momentum for external restructuring program, which has also commenced.
Details as well as take you to the Finance Ministry, where the minister is meeting the pension bond holders. Despite the backlash, piloting of its residential reallocation policy has been greeted with management of the University of Ghana says it intends to extend the new arrangement to cover 3 other halls of residence.
All these 5 traditional halls of the university would be reserved for only level 100 admissions, so that it helps us address that perennial problem we have every year.
Plus, kindergarten school teachers to earn same salary as senior teachers at the senior high school level in a move by government to attract the best at the early childhood development stage, but it comes with a condition.
Every teacher that we employ, especially for the KG level, has at least a bachelor's degree. It's a government policy to make sure that we actually have well-qualified, well-trained early childhood teachers.
And in sports,
issues of poor player welfare in Ghana resurface after Emmanuel Ajimambedu quits Accra Great Olympics.
And later in the bulletin, how difficult is it to put together a hit song?
I believe that when it comes to music, be careful the content you bring. But don't forget, say, the audience the wait.
We'll hear from music group Keche. Many thanks for choosing us. 23 people, including a 12-year-old, have been killed in the Boko clashes between January 31 and February 10 this year. That's according to the West African Network for Peace Building. The network in the Boko situation tracking report is warning the conflict is providing opportunities for extremists and terrorist infiltration into Ghana, starting from Boko. That's according to them, could result in intense cross-border violence by the extremists between Burkina Faso and Ghana's northern borders. My colleague Elton Broby joins me in the studio for more in the tracking report. Elton, break it down, the deaths as captured in the report for us.
So, Aisha, according to ONEP, 10 people were reportedly killed in renewed clash between residents and some alleged military personnel in Boko on January 31st, 2023. 2 community civilian members allegedly died from military gunfire, and on the next day, a similar incident by the military resulted in the death of 8 other persons. Now, a man was killed on the Sabongari Road by unknown gunmen on February 6, 2023. On the same day, according to the report, some criminal elements allegedly attempted to blow up a major bridge in Boko with an improvised explosive bomb that were unsuccessful. Now, on the 7th of February, around 5:15 p.m., unknown armed men alleged to be Mampuses, according to the report, alighted from a motor tricycle and started shooting at a group of men who were seated at a lorry park close to the municipal police station. The incident resulted in the death of 2 persons on the spot. Now, 3 commercial drivers, 2 Akans and 1 Bisa, who had loaded their vehicles and were to leave Boko Township, met their death on the highway, with several of their passengers sustaining various degrees of injuries. A number of Kusasi houses, according to the report, have allegedly been burned down as well. Now, on the 8th of February 2023, at Kariama, it is alleged, according to the report, the burning was carried out by some group they describe as Zanga, and this led to some shooting. Now, further shooting on Thursday, February 9th, 2023, resulted in 3 more deaths. A child of 12 years old was also reported killed on Friday, February 10. Report from one Ghana field monitors alleged that the military was responsible during an exchange of gunshots between civilians and military at 12:40 p.m. at Sangnaten. It is alleged that the 12-year-old victim was part of a group that reported to have blocked people who were coming to Boko Market, which resulted in the death of this 12-year-old child.
The report also highlights the alleged involvement by security agencies in some of the killings.
They say that it is unclear the Ghana military was involved in the death of the persons in Boko, or these were actions of impersonations. Now, the incident, according to the report, needs to be independently investigated and a report shared with the bereaved families.
And they are also warning the country of the implications of this on national security if not checked.
They say that the ongoing conflict in Boko can have further implications for peace and security. Any sustained violence, misunderstanding, mistrust, and non-cooperation among the security, the factions, and communities in Boko and adjoining district might provide opportunity for extremists and terrorist infiltration into Ghana, starting from Boko.
And any recommendations?
So there are about 6 of them. It says the Upper East Regional Security Council, the Boko Minister Security Council, and the National and Regional Peace Councils, as well as the specific security deployment, should intensify their collaboration among them. Also, the RECSEC and MUSEC should increase the presence of security personnel to places that are unmanned, and several other recommendations, Aisha.
Health and Broadway with those details. More on Boko shortly, but let's take you live to the Finance Ministry now. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is addressing a news conference.
I'm really secure in the knowledge that things will get better, and let's all work together, appreciate where we have come to. There will always be differences in appreciation of any policy, and people will take different views about it, but in the end, once we understand why we have made certain decisions and go forward, I think we'll continue to get this country on the right course sooner than later. So thank you again for that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So that brings us to the end of today's meeting. And we will wrap up as we began with a word of prayer.
Ken Ofori-Atta, his finance minister, and he was addressing pension bond holders. We'll bring you more on that. My colleague Kofi J is here. Kofi, what more do we know about the external debt restructuring?
Right, so Aisha, as we speak, Ghana is actually having an external debt of almost $29 billion. And then if we actually do an analysis of this debt, we know that, China alone is having about 1.7 billion of this debt. Eurobonds alone is $13 billion. Multilateral debt is 8.1 billion. And Paris Club, countries have about 1.9 billion with Ghana. Now, other creditors also, we owe them about 3.2 billion. Now, for us to be able to restructure our external debt, we have 4 steps to follow. The first one is to announce a default. We've already done that. The second one is to start negotiations. Third is to offer our creditors an exchange offer. And then also the final one will be the announcement.
Okay, so for context, how important is this? I mean, the need for the restructuring of external debt?
Well, so definitely we may probably encounter some difficulties. And also, if you look at the domestic debt restructuring, it is totally different from the external one. The external debts are usually governed by sophisticated laws and require more careful negotiations. And although Ghana has requested a bilateral debt restructuring under the G20 common framework, Aisha, Western leaders have repeatedly, criticized China for delaying debt restructuring for developing countries. And China alone, as a single country, we owe them about $2 billion.
What challenges will the nation probably face, Kofi?
Well, just like I said, we probably may face sophisticated laws, unlike our domestic debt that the country is sovereign. External debts, we may face sophisticated laws, and we have to do a lot of negotiations, unlike the domestic one.
My colleague Richard Kojonyako joins us live from the Finance Ministry, where the minister is holding a meeting with the pension bond holders. You heard him earlier speak. Kojonyako, what's the meeting about? We know he granted the request for total exemption.
So it was based on that the pensioner bond holders are here at the Finance Ministry to thank the Finance Minister and the team for acceding to their requests. But the Finance Minister had a few concerns. He says that it was unfortunate that the pensioners had to come picketing at the ministry where they had indicated that the program was not coercive and not compulsory. And he assured that payment of coupons, payment and settlement will be done after Tuesday, where processes will also begin, or processing will begin. And all coupons will also be attended to and honored in the spirit of the contract that they have signed individually. And so that is what the Finance Minister is saying.
Announcement on the external restructuring?
No, the Finance Minister has not said anything about that. He said that they have come to a close of the program, and so all the coupons that have been left unattended to would be attended to by Tuesday.
Kojonyako is our correspondent at the Finance Ministry, bringing us those details. Back to our earlier story on Boko and the disturbances there. Drivers transporting pepper and tomato from the Boko municipality to Accra have reportedly been shot dead, with several others sustaining injuries after unknown gunmen opened fire on the cargo trucks at a spot 20 kilometers from the conflict-ridden town. Love FM's Nana Bwache has more in the following report.
One driven from the scene of the shooting in Boko to Akomadan and Swame in Kumasi bear evidence of what took place on Tuesday. Bullet holes on the windscreen, side and rear of vehicles show aggressive, spontaneous shooting. Kweku Kao, 44, is driver of this cargo truck parked at Akomadan. He survived the assault but lost his son, 22-year-old Kofi Kao, to the massacre. He narrates how the two of them lay on their side on the floor of the vehicle in an attempt to escape the rain of bullets. Yakubu Asiripi is one of the owner of the cargo trucks that were attacked. The incident has since got him scared. So this vehicle here is among the 4 vehicles exporting pepper and cabbage from Boko to Accra. Unfortunately, we can count multiple bullet holes from this particular vehicle, from the door handle to the windscreen. The alleged incident happened at Boko. The car had 3 people in it, a driver and then 2 passengers. Unfortunately, the driver could not make it, but the 2 other passengers are receiving treatment at the Konfanoche Teaching Hospital.
Anabuache Yadon with that report. National Coordinator of WANEP, Albert Yeliang, says the situation could get bad if not handled well, saying there are targeted attacks in the communities.
There have been a number of incidences too that have occurred in terms of death. These probably have not been picked by the mandated institutions, for instance, the police, the hospitals and other, So a lot is happening in Boko that requires cooperation, collaboration.
Do we know the circumstances that led to all these other deaths that are unreported?
Boko is becoming a zone that, if you want to describe it, becoming militarized in a way. And so there are targeted attacks, on the fields, on the farms, on the roads, and around the houses. And some of the times, if there are firings or gunfires, on one location, the following day or almost the same day, you would hear gunfires from another side, So it's like almost many people are armed in a way, So we need to go deeper to be able to determine whether there are criminal elements already on the ground and where they are coming from, who is supporting their activities, who is making them excited.
Albert Yeliang is National Coordinator of ONEP. Also, is Conflict and Security Analyst Colonel retired Festus Aboagye wants a Midday dialogue set up to address the root cause of the conflict.
This timing is very worrisome to me because we are in the process of going to elections. And if this conflict now draws on and on and on, one day there's going to be a declaration that in view of or in light of the conflict, elections will not take place in a certain part of this country.
You heard the Colonel retired Festus Aboagye. Ghana Statistical Service has hinted the restructuring of the single spine salary to reduce salary disparities. The Ghana Statistical Service yesterday revealed that more than 80% of public sector employees earn less than 3,000 cedis. This was disclosed in the earnings inequality report released by the service. Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, government statistician, says the report has exposed the disparities in the single spine salary structure and thus it needs to bridge the gap. He has been speaking on the AM show.
Two reasons why GSS decided to initiate this was that if this exercise had been done prior to the deployment of the single spine, Benjamin, it would have been easy for us. It would have been easy for us to assess whether single spine had worked or not. And that is why now Ghana Statistical Service is saying that every policy intervention, every strategy should have statistical targets. If you don't have statistical targets, we'll come and sit here and qualitatively we'll say that single spine was successful or was not successful. So at the end of the day, if the single spine was to say that we are reducing inequality from now we are seeing 22% for basic salary to 10%. That is why it is important you do statistics before a policy, you do statistics during a policy, and you do statistics after a policy.
He adds the Ghana Statistical Service will collaborate with various stakeholders to expedite the restructuring of the single spine salary structure.
We are not doing this work on the blind side of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Yesterday, we made a public announcement that next week, latest next 2 weeks, we're going to have a roundtable discussion where we're going to bring on board the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. I'm in communication with him always. We're going to bring on board the Public Services Commission. We're going to bring on board the TUC, the trade union, and bring on board a labor expert. Look at all these results and ask ourselves, how would these results feed into the restructuring? And I'm looking forward that other, what I call real sector ministries would also do the same.
Let's do some education now. Management of the University of Ghana says it intends to extend its controversial residence allocation policy to 2 other halls. The policy has so far been implemented in 2 halls, Commonwealth and Mensa Saba halls. The facilities under the new measure are mainly reserved for new students and graduate students only. This has been met with legal action and agitation by continuing students who have effectively been kicked out of their rooms. Member of the school's communication team, Dr. Abenabenin, says the policy is here to stay.
Progressively up till 2025, the plan is to make all the traditional halls, Mensa Saba, Legon Hall, Ekwafu Hall, Commonwealth Hall, Volta Hall, all these 5 traditional halls of the university would be reserved for only level 100 admissions, so that it helps us address that perennial problem we have every year. As fresh students come in, they come stranded, they don't have accommodation, they don't know what to do, and they don't know the system, and so they become susceptible to scammers who are all over the place and trying to dupe unsuspecting students and parents. So it has those 2 purposes in mind. In terms of whether it is enough to address the clashes that were occurring on campus, we think it will do some. it may not solve everything, but part of the strategy when we reassigned the students to the UGL halls, and again, actually, let me also take opportunity and emphasize that no legitimate student of Commonwealth or male student of Sabah who was moved from these two sites was denied accommodation. All of them were placed.
Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Nanaba Apia-Amfo, says the university is pursuing various accommodation projects to permanently resolve the residents' challenges.
As a university, we need to prioritize our most vulnerable students, and these are our freshers. The university has grown in student numbers over the years.
Definitely.
And it's just a peculiar situation with our campuses here that we are largely residential. I mean, all over the world, the universities, you don't get every university student living on campuses, even for those campuses that are partly residential in nature. But I believe that this is a problem that we have as a country because it's, for instance, we don't have a viable transportation system in place for students to live, let's say, in Adenta, Kaswa, Spintex Road, and commute conveniently. And so I understand it when almost everyone wants to live on campus. The university management is making effort to increase the stock of accommodation that we have. There's a hostel ongoing just behind Jean Aka Hostel, and we are working extremely hard to ensure that come next academic year that is on board, and hopefully that should add about between 900 and 1,000 bed to our stock. And we are also in discussions with private developers. We've actually leased lands to private developers to develop hostel. And UGEL, which is the University of Ghana Enterprises Limited, is also engaging some prospective developers so that we can increase the number of beds that we have on campus for our students.
We're still live on the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM. Stories so far: 23 dead in 11 days at Boko, as the West African Network for Peace Building is warning of intense cross-border violence by extremists between Burkina Faso and Ghana's northern borders if the Boko conflict is not brought under control. Government steps up its quest to secure an IMF support program with focus now on restructuring $29 billion worth of external debt after what it says is a successful domestic restructuring. Still to come in the bulletin, in the face of the economic crisis facing the country, how is President Akufo-Addo taking it?
Despite all that is going on in Ghana today. But apart from everything else, I think it has to go with the job. I mean, if I am wobbling, then it means Ghana is wobbling.
We have sports also coming up shortly.
Welfare.
Welcome back to the Midday News. Mishael is here with sports.
Yes, I am. And well, after quoting Accra Great Olympics, Emmanuel Ajimanbedu has called out local football administrators. The ex-Black Stars International lasted only 6 months after signing a one-year deal with the Olidade boys in August last year. He leaves after allegedly being witch-hunted by the club's management, and he tells Joy Sports clubs need to do better for their players.
I know football, there's a lot of things, but where I've reached in my career or in football, I don't need to hide things inside me. If I want to talk, you will exactly know what happened. What I want to say is I have a lot to do. This cannot distract me. I will follow other things I was doing before and just concentrate on it. But what I can say is player welfare in Ghana is something that we should look after. It's very important.
There you have it, Aisha. An old cancer rearing its head once again. But on myjoyline.com/sports, we have Julian. Let's go tip him. Kamaldeen Sulemana to flourish at relegation threatened Southampton, and Mikel Obi lamenting over Michael Essien, whom he believes was never credited enough. And lastly, Thomas Partey being the doubt for Arsenal's clash with Aston Villa.
Thank you very much, Michael. With sports now, teachers in kindergarten or early childhood development level will now require to possess a university degree, or there is no way. But those who are successful will be placed on the same salary as a senior teacher at a senior high school. This, according to government, is to attract the best to teach at that level where the development of the child is key. Deputy Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Dr. Kwabena Bempatando, speaking to Patriotic Spaces on Twitter, said the new strategy is to modernize teaching and learning in the country.
Gone are the days now in Ghana where the thought was that if you were a lower prepared teacher, where you have either a diploma or high school certificate, is when you are sent to KG and to the primary schools. We started in 2020 ensuring that every teacher that we employ, especially for the KG level, has at least a bachelor's degree. It's a government policy to make sure that we actually have well-qualified, well-trained early childhood teachers with a bachelor's degree, which means an early childhood teacher at the entry level with a bachelor's degree is paid the same salary as a senior high school teacher. And so there is no distinction, and that is to also ensure that we attract high-quality teachers into our early childhood without them jeopardizing or at least not getting the same type of remuneration for the work that they do.
Away from education, in the face of the economic crisis facing the country, how is President Akufo-Addo taking it?
Despite all that is going on in Ghana today. But apart from everything else, I think it has to go with the job. I mean, if I am wobbling, then it means Ghana is wobbling. That's the way I've looked at it. I'm at the center of the state with the problems that there are and all the difficulties which we all recognize. If I am also seen to be uncertain, unstable, wobbling and everything, it cannot be of any good for the country. I am compelled by where I am to be stable, to be composed, and to make sure that I reflect that for the people of.
He was interacting with Old Student Association of Wesley Girls, who paid a courtesy call on him. Now, music group Keche has opened on the inspiration behind some of its hit songs. They say despite seeking to write good and timeless songs, they try to equally put out hit songs their fans can dance and sing along.
Ocean. Like body lotion. Bridge.
Is that Adoni Bridge?
Yeah. And we were buying this Adodi.
Okay.
Something. We wanted to eat. And when the girl came, the way she was speaking, I'm like, don't speak. You are not an Ewe. She said, no, she's a Gan.
Yeah,
it is called Ache.
See, mentioned some name here.
Some day I said Ache, so we're joking. So in the car waiting, Ache Otumadu so called it. I mean, it was just fun. You know, like, yo, this song, let's just put it out there. We put it out there, and
within 1 month, it became like the biggest hit.
You see, so sometimes we sit down, we put like good mood. I mean, no darling, something must happen. Abrabo, like they say, you see, you write songs. So
our generation, if you don't be careful, I tell you. So I believe that when it comes to music, be careful the content you bring, but don't forget, say, the audience they wait.
And that's how we wrap up the midday news. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Just by way of recap, 23 dead in 11 days at Boko at the West African Network for Peace Building is warning of intense cross-border violence by extremists between Burkina Faso and Ghana's northern borders if the Boko conflict is not brought under control. Also, government steps up its quest to secure an IMF support program with focus now on restructuring $29 billion worth of external debt after after what it says is a successful domestic restructuring. And despite the backlash, piloting of its residential reallocation policy has been greeted with management of the University of Ghana says it intends to extend the new arrangement to cover 3 other halls of residence plus kindergarten school teachers to earn same salary as senior teachers at the senior high school level. There is more on myjournline.com, including gold for oil policy does not need parliamentary approval, Ijapa Mesa says, and government has no intention to take over petroleum market, says Ijapa. More on myjournline.com. Up next is Living Word with Mensa Otabel.